Hey everyone, it's T and welcome back to my channel. So for this video we're going to talk about the Crow reboot, which has been in developmental hell for years, but according to a report by Bloody Disgusting, it looks like it is back on the menu for us. For those of you who don't know the sordid history, they have been trying to reboot The Crow, which was Brandon Lee's last film, based on James O'Barr's iconic comic, which was about this guy named Eric Draven who comes back from the dead to avenge his death and his dead lover's, Shelley's, death. The comic is a lot more bloody and like revenge driven than the movie, but the movie, which was released in 1994, sorry, I should probably make the distinction now since we're in 2020, but the movie kind of gained this cult status, especially after Brandon died shooting the film, which has a lot of conspiracy theories around it. But basically there was an accident on set. He was essentially shot. It was an unfortunate accident, and a lot of people hold the film, including myself, in high reverence, not because of Brandon's, not only his death, but just because I think it's a really good film. It's one of my favorites. But anyway, they have been trying to reboot it for a really long time, since about 2008. They've been trying to get this thing off the ground. There have been lots of actors and directors going around, including Juan Carlos Fresnaldo, who did 28 Weeks Later. Bradley Cooper was in talks to play lead role of Eric Draven. Luke Evans was. Alexander Skarsgård, he was tapped. Tom Hiddleston was tapped. Kristen Stewart was considered to play Shelley. So there's been a whole thing off and on throughout the years of directors coming on, actors coming on, and then dropping out. It looks like they got really close to having the reboot get off the ground, with The Nun's director Corden Hardy attached to it, and Jason Momoa to play Eric Draven. The movie was slated for an October 11, 2019 release, but that came and went, with Momoa and Hardy both exiting the project. That was back in about July of 2018 when Sony took it off the shelf. But now it looks like Sony has decided to try again, bring it back on, this time with a new director and a new writer. So they're basically retooling it, trying to get it back into development. It doesn't look like anyone has been named to write or direct the film yet. And I mean, there's not honestly really too much to say about it, except for I think they need to give it a rest. It's been, over a decade? Yeah, it's been over a decade since they've been trying to get this reboot off the ground. And clearly it's not working out. It's not meant to be. I understand how sometimes, you want to do a project and you get delayed or something like that. But with so many people coming and going and it just being as big of a nightmare as it's been, I think Hollywood just needs to give it a rest. Sony just needs to shelve it. And I'm not exactly sure why there's such an interest in rebooting it in the first place. Not to say that it's a bad movie. I mean, I obviously love the movie. It's a movie that I have a very special connection with. It's near and dear to my heart. I really love it, the original. There's just been so many attempts to try to recreate that or build like this big franchise off of it, and none of it has really been successful. Like, there have been 3 sequels, all of which have been mediocre. The first one was City of Angels with Vincent Perez. Meh, at best. Like, it was passable. The third one was The Crow Salvation, which had Eric Mabius. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. And that was probably the best sequel out of the movies that they've done. It followed closely along to the original with some differences. The acting was kind of meh. Like, Kristen Dunst was in it as well. I don't know. It was okay. It was passable. Out of the sequels, I would say that was the best one. And then there was Wicked Prayer with Edward Furlong, David Boreanaz, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. He played Angel and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and then Tara Reid was in it, and that was awful. It's really bad. Direct to DVD. But, the other ones kind of were too, so that doesn't really say much. But yeah, they were all just nightmares. There was a show, and that wasn't that bad. The show was actually pretty good from what I can remember. But the point is, there's been all these attempts to kind of build something from it, and they all haven't been as successful. Like, I would love to see a more faithful adaptation to the comic, because the comic's brutal. Like, if you read the comic, you'll see like a clear difference in direction and even with the character, but they're both good pieces of art. I enjoy both the comic and the movie, and so like I said, I'd love to see a more faithful adaptation to the comic, but at the same time, it's conflicting, because if all these bad things are happening, to me, that's a sign that it just shouldn't be made. Like, just let it go. Just let it rest. Like I said, it's weird that Hollywood is having such a vested interest in making the film, because, like, let's be honest, it only grossed $50 million at the box office when it was released, and even though it has this cult classic status, a lot of times when you try to remake these cult classics, things don't go right. The Evil Dead worked out good, but to me that's like an exception to the rule. There's several other cult classics that they have tried to retool and rework, and it just never works out for whatever reason or the other. It's like Hollywood loses sight of the original image, and in an attempt to create something new and something fresh with that, it ends up falling flat. Just take a new idea. Just make something new. If you want to draw inspiration from The Crow, I think that's perfectly fine. And try to do something of your own with that. I think that would be better than what they're trying to do as far as remaking it. Because obviously, whatever they're trying to do with it isn't working. So, I don't know. I just don't think it's a movie that should be remade. Not just because of Brandon dying. I feel like that's a big part of it. But it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't seem right, especially with everything going wrong. And like I said, it's weird that they have such a vested interest in remaking this. Like I said, it's not like it was a big cash cow, so I'm not sure what the interest is in remaking it at all. Maybe because they have a love for the film, which I kind of doubt, which is cynical of me, but I really doubt that's the reason driving them to it, or if they're just trying to exploit a cult classic and have people who love the original go out to be like, oh, well, I gotta see this and check it out. I think it would draw good attention to people directing them to the original film, but as far as doing the reverse, having people who really enjoy the original film coming out to see the new one just to see what it is, or just to shit on it, is not something that I personally would bank my millions on, but it looks like that's what Sony wants to do. I don't know. I just think that they should give it a rest. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think it's worth trying to pursue remaking The Crow, or do you agree with me that they should just stop? Let me know in the comments below, and if there's anything else that you'd like to talk about. Alright, I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Bye, bye, bye.